My parents lied that I was mentally disabled to steal my college fund and pay for my sister's tuition. Now they could owe me $150,000 after I uncovered the truth. I always thought my family just didn't have the money to send me to college. Growing up, my parents never talked about saving for my education, and when I asked about financial aid, they said I didn't qualify. It stung, but I accepted it. I figured they were stretched thin, and I'd have to make my own way. Community college, part-time jobs, whatever it took. But a few months ago, while sorting through old boxes in their garage after a pipe burst, I found something that turned my understanding of my life upside down. A folder with my name on it, stuffed with documents I'd never seen before. Social Security letters, medical forms, benefit claims. All of them painted a picture of me as someone with a severe mental disability. The problem? I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. Those papers weren't just wrong, they were lies. And those lies had been used to take money that was meant for me. Growing up, my parents always treated me differently from my sister. They said I had trouble learning, that I needed extra help to keep up. They never gave specifics, just vague comments about developmental issues. It didn't add up. I was in honors classes, consistently scored high on tests, and even tutored classmates in algebra. Teachers praised my work ethic and focus. But every time I mentioned college, my parents shut it down. They suggested trade schools or said college wasn't for everyone. Money was tight, they claimed, and they couldn't help me. I believed them. I took their words at face value and started working at a grocery store and a coffee shop to save for community college. Meanwhile, my sister enrolled in a private university. Her tuition was paid, her dorm was covered, and she got a new car. I assumed she'd earned scholarships. When I asked her once how she managed it, she shrugged and said our parents took care of everything. I didn't press further. I was too busy trying to survive. The folder I found in the garage changed everything. It wasn't just a collection of random papers. It was a meticulously organized record of a scheme. Social Security benefit letters addressed to my parents listed me as a dependent with a severe intellectual disability. Medical forms, signed by a doctor I'd never met, described conditions I'd never heard of. Educational reports claimed I needed special accommodations, despite my academic record showing the opposite. The documents spanned years, starting when I was 13. I sat on the garage floor, reading through them, feeling my stomach twist. None of it was true. I called the Social Security office to verify the claims. After hours on hold and multiple transfers, a representative confirmed that benefits had been paid out under my name for years. The money was supposed to support my care or go into a trust for my future. Instead, it had vanished. I started to suspect where it went. The realization hit hard that the money meant for me might have funded my sister's education. I needed proof, so I enlisted my cousin, who works as an accountant and has access to financial tracking tools. We spent days piecing together bank statements and payment records from my parents' accounts, cross-referencing them with the Social Security documents. The numbers told a clear story. Over the course of 8 years, my parents received over $150,000 in benefits under my name. Large withdrawals and transfers coincided with my sister's college enrollment, tuition deadlines, and even the purchase of her car. None of the money appeared in my name, no trust, no savings, no trace. I checked my own bank records to be sure. I'd been living paycheck to paycheck, scraping by on minimum wage to cover community college fees. The contrast was stark. My sister had a full ride to a private university, while I was taking night classes and working doubles. The betrayal felt like a physical weight. I couldn't keep this to myself. I confronted my mother first, showing her the folder and asking for an explanation. She didn't deny it. She said they made tough choices to keep the family afloat, and that I wasn't cut out for a traditional college path. When I pressed her on the fake diagnoses, she claimed they genuinely believed I had issues, despite no doctor ever discussing them with me. My father was harder to reach. He avoided my calls and stayed silent when I finally cornered him at home. Their lack of remorse stunned me. I contacted a legal aid organization recommended by a friend. The lawyer I spoke with reviewed the documents and said this could be fraud, possibly even conversion of federal funds. They suggested a civil lawsuit might recover the money, especially if I could prove the diagnoses were fabricated. I started gathering evidence, report cards, standardized test scores, and emails from teachers who remembered me as a strong student. The process was overwhelming, but I kept going. Building a case became my full-time focus outside of work and classes. The legal aid lawyer explained that proving fraud required a clear timeline, solid evidence, and a demonstration of harm. I spent weeks collecting every piece of documentation I could find to show I was never disabled. My high school records were a goldmine: straight A's in advanced placement courses, perfect attendance, and letters of recommendation from teachers who called me a standout. I tracked down my old chess coach, who wrote a statement confirming I competed at a regional level with no accommodations. Standardized test scores from my junior year placed me in the top percentile nationally. I even found a journal from my teenage years where I wrote about my college dreams, proof that I'd always planned to pursue higher education. Each piece felt like a brick in a wall I was building to reclaim my truth. The lawyer also suggested getting medical records to show no diagnoses existed. I requested files from every doctor I'd seen as a kid. Most came back clean, but one pediatrician's office had a single form, signed by my mother, claiming I had cognitive delays. The doctor's notes, however, had no record of testing or evaluation. It was a dead end for them, but a smoking gun for me. I also reached out to the Social Security office again, requesting a full history of the benefits paid out. The process was slow, with endless forms and phone calls, but they eventually sent a detailed report confirming the payments and their intended use for my care. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got, not just at the money, but at the lie they'd built around me. They'd rewritten my identity to fit their scheme, and I'd spent years doubting myself because of it. My sister's reaction was the hardest to process. I hadn't planned to tell her right away, but she overheard me discussing the case with my cousin during a family gathering. She confronted me later, her face red with anger, accusing me of trying to tear the family apart. She said our parents did what was necessary to give her a future, and I should be grateful for their sacrifices. I tried explaining that the money was stolen from me, that it was meant for my future, but she wouldn't listen. She insisted I was exaggerating, that I'd always been jealous of her success. It hurt more than my parents' silence. We'd never been close, but I didn't expect her to side with them so fiercely. I started to wonder if she'd known about the money all along. Her college years were filled with things I could never afford: new clothes, spring break trips, a laptop that cost more than my car. I pulled back from her after that, focusing on the case. My parents, meanwhile, cut off all contact. My calls went to voicemail, and my texts were left unread. I drove to their house once, but no one answered the door, even though their cars were in the driveway. The legal aid team warned me this might happen. They said families often close ranks when faced with accountability. They also said the case was strong but not guaranteed. Federal fraud cases were tricky, and civil suits depended on proving intent. I hired a private investigator with some savings to dig into the doctor who signed the false form. He found the doctor had a history of signing off on questionable claims for a fee, which could bolster the fraud angle. I kept working, kept studying, kept pushing forward, but the weight of it all was crushing. Nights were the worst, lying awake, replaying every moment I'd trusted my parents. I started seeing a therapist through a low-cost clinic to cope with the betrayal. She helped me name the grief, not just for the money, but for the family I thought I had. The case began to take shape, but progress was slow and draining. The legal aid team filed a formal complaint with the Social Security Administration, alleging fraud and misappropriation of benefits. They also prepared a civil lawsuit against my parents for conversion of funds, which could potentially recover the $150,000 they'd taken. Gathering evidence became a marathon. I spent countless hours tracking down additional records, from bank statements to old emails. My cousin helped analyze financial trails, confirming that large sums from the benefit accounts were transferred directly to my sister's university, and other expenses tied to her. I contacted former teachers and even a school counselor, who provided sworn statements about my academic ability and lack of any documented disability. One teacher, who taught me AP English, wrote a detailed letter recalling how I'd helped edit the school newspaper and never needed accommodations. The private investigator's findings about the doctor were a breakthrough. He uncovered a pattern of the doctor signing off on dubious medical forms for multiple families, often for a cash payment. The investigator managed to get a retired nurse from the doctor's office to confirm that my mother had visited frequently, always paying in cash for consultations that never involved me. This tied the fake diagnosis directly to my parents' actions. I also obtained my full medical history from every clinic I'd visited as a child, which showed no evidence of cognitive or developmental issues. The Social Security Administration sent an auditor to review the benefit claims, and I met with them to present my school records and test scores. The auditor's questions were thorough, probing every detail of my childhood and my parents' behavior. It was exhausting, reliving those years under scrutiny, but I stayed focused. My therapist helped me manage the stress, pointing out that my anger was fueling my determination. I started to notice small victories: like the auditor's nod when I showed my chess tournament medals or the lawyer's confidence when we added the nurse's statement to the file. But the silence from my family grew heavier. My sister sent one text, warning me to drop the case or I'd regret it. I didn't respond. My parents hired a lawyer, who sent a letter claiming the benefits were used for family expenses, and that I'd benefited indirectly. It was a weak defense, but it showed they were fighting back. The legal aid team said this was expected and that we had a strong chance, especially with the doctor's shady history. I kept working my jobs, studying for my community college exams, and saving every penny for legal fees if the case went to court. The process was a grind, but I felt a strange clarity. For the first time, I saw my parents not as flawed but loving people, but as calculated opportunists who'd sacrificed my future for their own gain. The truth was liberating, even if it came at a cost. I wasn't the broken one, they were. The case is moving forward, with a hearing scheduled in a few months. The Social Security Administration's investigation is ongoing, and the auditor hinted that criminal charges for fraud could be on the table if the evidence holds. The civil lawsuit is riskier. Recovering the full $150,000 isn't guaranteed, and legal battles can drag on. But I'm prepared to see it through, no matter how long it takes. The money would change my life. I could transfer to a four-year university, maybe even study engineering like I'd always dreamed. But more than the money, I want justice. They didn't just steal funds, they stole my confidence, my trust, and years of opportunity. I've lost my family in this process. My sister hasn't spoken to me since her text, and my parents' lawyer handles all communication. I've stopped trying to reach them. My cousin and a few close friends have become my support network, checking in when the stress gets overwhelming. My therapist says I'm reclaiming my narrative, and I feel it. Every document I file, every statement I collect, is a step toward rewriting the story they tried to force on me. I've started planning for the future, researching schools and scholarships I can apply for, even if the lawsuit doesn't pay out. I'm proud of how far I've come, working 2 jobs, acing my classes, and fighting this battle on my own. The betrayal still stings, especially late at night when I think about the family I thought I knew. But I'm not defined by their lies anymore. I'm defined by my resilience, my refusal to let their actions dictate my worth. The road ahead is uncertain, but I'm ready for it. They tried to erase my potential, but I'm proving them wrong, one step at a time. I'll take this as far as it needs to go, not just for me, but for anyone else they might have hurt. This isn't just my story now, it's a warning to others. Check your records. Question the narrative. Fight for what's yours.